Beyonce and Sexyy Red may be going Trump, even Libs are done with New York City liberal policies, and an LGBT center loses federal funding for hosting sex parties. This is Can't Cancel Rob Smith. Okay, problematics. Lots and lots and lots going on. First of all, America is back in the black community as Beyonce embraces the flag and Sexyy Red embraces Trump. Okay, let's get into it. First of all, who is Sexyy Red? See, I never want to assume who my followers are. I know that my problematics come from everywhere. They are black, they are white, they are young, they are older. They are left, right, and independent. So I'm going to say that maybe some of the older, more conservative crowd that is a problematic doesn't know who Sexyy Red is. Sexyy Red is a new female rapper on the scene. Sexyy Red is spelled with 2 Y's. She's got red hair. Like, honestly, she's just like this ratchet black girl rapper. I forget where she's from, but she's from the South. She is the one that Ben Shapiro did the parody on. She's the one that has a song, my coochie pink, my booty hole brown. Like, it's just ratchet. And look, I gotta keep it real, problematics. Here's the thing with me and ratchet culture. And, maybe I'll break this down in a future episode. I have fun with ratchet culture. I do. I really do. I don't have kids. I wouldn't want them listening to it. I think it's degrading certain aspects of the culture. Like, there are certain aspects of the black community that are always going to be ratchet. It is ratchet culture. These people have their own language, their own culture. Everybody else just kind of like tries to stay away from them. And I'm just being completely honest. But look, I embrace ratchet culture. Like, I do this ratchet culture like the white people do ratchet culture, okay? And this is what I'll tell you. White people get real ratchet when Drake comes on. Everybody's a ninja when Drake comes on, right? And then they put on their suits, they go make money, they do the thing, all right? And that's how I embrace ratchet culture. Like, I like some of the stuff, like I'll pop like I'll do whatever, but then, it's time to go get money, and I can't go get money being a ratchet. Anyway, that's who Sexyy Red is. This is her. This is some of Sexyy Red's vocal stylings from a recent show that she did. That is... So there's a song called Rich Baby Daddy by Drake. It's Drake featuring Sexyy Red and SZA. That's her performing that song live. And she decided she's going to do the ad-libs. Go on, Sexyy Red. Anyway, that's Sexyy Red. She's attracting a lot of attention and getting a lot of attention right now because she is performing in front of this big red hat that says Make America Sexy Again. Obviously, this is a callback to the MAGA hat, right? And she has said in interviews before, like she has said, so ratchet. She said, yeah, I messed with Trump because everybody's making money and we was getting checks and all that other stuff. It's just like, oh my God. It's just like, I can't, it's like it's literally like dealing with the kindergartner. Anyway, so she's into this, but the most interesting thing about this to me is that nobody's trying to cancel Sexyy Red. Nobody's trying to be like, oh, blah, blah, blah. So no matter what you think about Trump, no matter what you think about MAGA, anything like that, the culture has shifted when it comes to Trump. All right. That is just being completely honest. The culture has shifted, especially black culture, and especially like that hip hop culture. Nobody's going to get canceled in hip hop for saying that they're going for Trump. Right. And it used to be to where, you kind of had all these black libs that were like all these black libs in the media, like your Angela Rye types and all of that. They would always try to kind of like control the conversation and say, well, you can't do this. We're going to cancel you, blah, blah, blah. And you don't really see anybody talking about this, right? You don't see anybody trying to cancel Sexyy Red. She's like, I'm voting for Trump and it is what it is. And it is symptomatic of, or emblematic of how the culture has shifted towards Trump over the past couple of years. Like, there were people that made it safe, even though I'm not sort of like like super, super, super MAGA, MAGA, MAGA anymore. But I remember in 2018, like I was canceled in 2020 for going out and stumping for Trump and all that other stuff. Like I was really canceled, but you know, you get a lot of, you know, pushback for that, right? But what I find interesting is that she's not getting pushback for that. She's just like, whatever. And it's almost like branding. You know, I think that it's fascinating. And I think that you guys know how critical I am of this idea that a whole bunch of black people are just all of a sudden going to start voting for Trump and Republicans because of what Sexyy Red is doing or Kodak Black is doing or whatever. Because, and I've said this a million times, and I'll probably say this a million times in the future, you know, when I'm reading, you know, the Republicans or the MAGA influencers were talking about how much of the black vote they're going to get. They're not really doing anything to get the black vote. People in the hood that are listening to Sexyy Red or that'll be like, okay, she, you know, she messes with Trump, whatever. Like, that's not the most reliable voting block in the world. But I think it's interesting how she can do her thing and not be sort of slammed by this. So, Beyonce. So today, this episode today, this is the Beyonce album release, the Cowboy Carter album. This is Beyonce's entree into the country era. And what is so interesting about all of this, it's not that she's doing country, because if you're a Beyonce stan and like I am a proud member of the Hive, like I'm in the Hive. You know, I know Beyonce album cuts. Like I will give you Beyonce album cuts from the first album. So I'm very much in the Hive. But when you look at this album cover, this is Beyonce on a white horse carrying American flag. She's got the Cowboy Carter slash. It's red, white, and blue. She's wearing this red, white, and blue pantsuit. Like, this is really Americana. And what I find so interesting about how the culture is shifting towards America again, and I've said this a million times, what is going to happen in DC in November is going to happen in DC in November, but the culture has already shifted to the right. Like, that's where the culture already is. And this is very emblematic of this. And it's very interesting that just going on 9 years ago, we were in the Beyonce formation era where she was doing the Super Bowl performance and they were in the Malcolm X and she was, you know, the fist in the air and all that other stuff. This is very interesting to me. And what this is really saying to me and what this is really getting into is the fact that it's very interesting to see black artists embracing America and embracing Americana, because we've just come out of this phase in which black people were expected to hate this country and to hate America and to hate capitalism and to hate cops and to hate all of that other stuff. That's where the culture was. And where you see things as shifting, it's very interesting because the people that controlled the conversation no longer control the conversation. And I always go back to, like, obviously Angela Rye, not to pick on Angela, like I've never met her, but she in my mind is so emblematic of just like that black liberal that is like so far left and is like, you got to be this, you got to be that, you got to be that. And I think that people are moving away from this. And people are saying, okay, well, black people are saying that we are going to embrace America in our way, on our terms, and we're not going to be pressured by any side of the aisle to do this. This is what I see this in. I know I'm extrapolating a lot from, you know, Beyonce and a rapper who talks about the color of her booty hole, but this is very emblematic of the culture. And I really believe that. I really believe that this is black people. What you're going to see over the next 10 years is you're going to see the black population in this country embrace America in a way that the black population sees fit. And it's not going to be directed by politicians. It's not going to be directed by Democrat politicians. It's not going to be directed by Republican politicians. It's not going to be directed by black libs or white libs. No matter what you think about Trump, no matter what you have to say about Trump, that, like, Trump is cultural. And that is a cultural thing. Something happened culturally between Trump and the black community. I am very skeptical as to whether that will translate into votes. I do not know. I don't personally think so. I could be wrong. The 2020 numbers are not, it's not indicating to me that there's going to be some big push for black people. But either way, Trump is cultural. Whether he wins or loses or whatever, he's cultural. And it'll be very interesting to see where this sort of embrace of America within the black community leads. I think it's very fascinating. Okay, so even the libs are starting to see that leftism is absolutely destroying our once great American cities. Now, I'm going to play you a clip. This is Anna Kasparian. If you're into this space, I feel like everybody knows who she is. She is this huge lib that is a co-host on the Young Turks. She's like this huge lib, this huge liberal, like sort of like really goes in, been super far left. The Young Turks, I believe, are very far left, and it's been very interesting to see people that have achieved a lot of prominence being liberal activists sort of being dragged at least to the center because leftism has gotten so completely insane. And this is her going off. This is a policy apparently from New York City that does not punish dismembering corpses. Like this is so wild. And I want you to listen to or take a look at what she has to say about this.
Dismembering a corpse and hiding a corpse after dismembering it. Not bail eligible. Not a serious crime. I'm not even kidding, guys. Like when Joy Behar outlined that case, I was like, she's crazy. This isn't a thing. This isn't real. This isn't real. So I looked it up. It's real, guys. It's real. Listen, if being on the left means supporting this, then I'm not on the left, and I'm okay with that. So let me give you the details of the case.
It doesn't mean that.
Okay, I don't know. Let me give you the
Behar's
details.
On the left. We're all on the left. We don't want people dismembering folks getting released. Only a couple
Some
of
do.
lunatic.
Some do.
I know. What I was in the middle of saying is only a couple of lunatic activists are like, yeah, we're pro dismemberment guys being let go. Okay, whatever.
These
You
poor
don't represent the left at
criminals
all.
who dismembered bodies. It's so unfair to put them in prison. Okay, let me give you the details of the actual case, okay? So 4 people were arrested in New York after body parts were found in Long Island. Okay, dismembered body parts. The victims were, 2 people from Yonkers, older individuals. Suffolk County Police say 44-year-old Stephen Brown, 38-year-old Jeffrey Mackey, 40-year-old Amanda Wallace, and 33-year-old Alexis Nieves were charged with concealment of a corpse, tampering with physical evidence, and hindering prosecution. They have not been charged with murder.
All right, so this is interesting. Number one, I can do a month-long Monday through Friday series of just how crazy New York City has gotten well over the past decade, all right? Now, for some context, I've lived in New York City in some capacity since 2008. Obviously, right now I'm in the great state of Florida, and I split my time between here and New York City. But I have seen things sort of circle the drain there. And so before I get into New York City in particular, I just want to talk about there's something happening right now in American politics. And I like to, I do some stuff. If you guys listen to the audio only version of this, right now, and like I will probably go video first 5 days a week at some point in the future. But I dig a little bit deeper into politics in the audio stuff. The video stuff, I dig more into culture. So when you take the politics out of it and you really just look at things on the local level, there is something that is happening right now in these cities where even liberals are getting fed up with these policies. And this is what happens in these cities. As somebody that has lived in New York, like I said, in some capacity, when you look at the city council, when you look at all of these things, these sort of smaller, low-level positions in these cities, they get hijacked by extremists, okay? And so what you have right now, if you have a bunch of very far left people that are setting laws, if you have very far left people that are, district attorneys. I remember Gascon was like a really big thing. This is the stuff that you're going to see. And this isn't something that if you vote left or right locally, like this isn't something that Republicans are going to just come in locally and clean up, because these are essentially one-party states at this point. If you're in New York City, that is one-party rule. There is very rarely any Republican that's gonna get any power. So at this point, it is up to the old school liberals to sort of start wrestling power away back from these leftists, because if you do not do this, these things will continue to get worse and worse. Now, back to New York City. I've lived in New York City, like I said, in some capacity since 2008, and I saw there was Bloomberg, and Bloomberg was basically a Republican running as an independent. Again, the only way you're going to get any elected office in a place like New York or Philly or LA, etc. I fell for the de Blasio okie doke. When Bill de Blasio came in with his black wife and those biracial kids, and I was a lib at the time, and I was like, oh, these people are the right people for New York. And that man and his wife grifted New York City to the tune of billions. It is outrageous, all right? But that was when I started seeing the decline in New York City. Do I think that Eric Adams can start cleaning this stuff up? Yes, but his hands are tied because there's so many things that were happening before he got in. And now Adams is a bit of a grifter. You know, he's not really cleaning things up the way that they need to be cleaned up. So there's all of that stuff going on. So I'm going to tell you this, Libs. Liberals that watch me, and liberals, like, I have nothing against liberals. Some of my best friends in the world are liberals, all right? If you don't start taking your party back, and if you don't start redirecting this energy back from the crazies, this is what's going to continue to happen in these cities that you love. Because I had to tell you something, and maybe it's the, you know, the part of me that still, that little lib part of me that is always kind of like trying to come out, because I'm never enough of anything for anybody. I'm never conservative enough for conservatives. I'm never lib enough for lib. I'm just me. But I'm the type of person that enjoys cities. There are things that I can get from New York City that I just cannot get from Miami. I get theater from New York City. I get art. I get culture. I get all these other things. These are things that these cities have and that you cannot get from, you know, your Miamis of the world. You're going to get a little bit, but you're never going to get what you get from New York. You know what I mean? Like, I'm never going to get Broadway in Miami. But then again, these are the lib cities. So if you love these cities, you have to start speaking up, and you have to start wrestling your city away from these crazies, because it is going to start getting weirder and creepier and more dangerous, which, by the way, New York City right now is the most dangerous I have ever seen it before in my life. You've got to watch your back, all right? When you're in New York City nowadays, in a way that I don't think that you've ever had to anymore. So everybody, what is happening in New York City, and back to Anna Kasparian, you know, with the Young Turks and all this, like, these people are as far left as you can be, right? But now even they're seeing that the extremes and the fringes are destroying things. I personally think that the fringes on both sides are destroying this country. Because I think that what happens is that everybody gets into these little cults. And if you're in the right cult or the conservative cult, you have to think this way, and you can never think that way. If you're in the lib cult, you have to think this way. And if you think some other way, then all of a sudden you're not in our cult anymore. All right. So if the people that are sane in this country, and I'm talking sane people, and I'm not talking about boring both sides people who never want to make a stand, because I'm over those people as well. You may call me a both sides, or you may call me a centrist. You may call me whatever you want to call me, but I'm bold enough to take a stand. Like, I'm not going to both sides everything. New York City is trash right now, and it needs to be cleaned up. And laws that are making it an unarrestable offense for people to literally dig up corpses and dismember them is not helping. All right? It's not helping. Using taxpayer dollars for all the illegals in New York City so that they can have room service and debit cards and all that stuff is also not helping. All right? The people that are sane in this country, and there are still a few sane people. There are a few sane people in this country. You've got to start taking your spaces, and we have got to start taking this country back from the fringes. The fringes are going to push us right over the cliff. And if you've learned nothing over the past decade of all of the things that you've seen, the lunatic fringe telling you that cops are bad. The lunatic fringe that is telling you that arresting criminals is bad. The lunatic fringe that is telling you that if you have a friend or a family member that voted in a way that is opposite of the way that you voted, that they are to be shunned and you are never to speak to them again. That is fringe insanity. And we cannot allow fringe insanity to take over in this country, because what's going on in New York City right now is, I believe, a microcosm of what's going on in the culture right now. Because there's a lot of good people on both sides of the aisle in this country. I'll always believe that, even though, you know, liberal, like, The far left wants you to believe that everybody that's not them is crazy and evil and wants to destroy America. And the far right wants you to believe that everybody that is not like them is evil and crazy and destroying America. I will never believe that. I've met too many good people in this country on all sides of the political aisle. I've met too many good people, lived a lot of life. If the same people in this country do not start speaking up and do not start neutralizing these fringes, everybody's quality of life will go down. And if you even want to extrapolate that to what's going on in the country right now, Joe Biden is not running as you understand that Joe Biden is not governing as a centrist. He is not governing as a center-right Democrat or a centrist Democrat. This person is governing to the very far left. In pure governance, he is governing to the very far left. And that is why you see the degradation in quality of life in this country. Now, New York City, these cities are such extreme examples of it. And this is why nobody wants to live in these cities. All right. I've never seriously thought before about just completely being gone from New York City. You know, I love New York. I'll be there for a week and a half and a little bit. I really do truly love that city. Like, my love for that city is never going to go away. I wouldn't live in LA, but I understand the appeal of LA. California is just not for me, but I get the appeal of that city. The fringes in power and those policies are destroying that city. Now, Philly is a total crap hole that I don't want to spend any time in unless I'm getting paid. But they've already destroyed that city. So let me tell you this. If the sane thinking people in this country do not start speaking up and do not start standing up to a lot of this far left and far right stuff, then this is what's going to continue to happen. All right, Problematics, an LGBT community center in Philadelphia has lost $1 million in federal funding after it's been exposed that they were hosting sex parties. Now, this is from, I'm going to break this down, but first of all, this is from ABC News 6 in Philly.
Here at 5:30, it has been the heart of Philadelphia's LGBT community for 50 years. Tonight, the William Way Center is in the middle of a controversy on Capitol Hill. At the heart of all of this is an allegation on social media that the center would use federal funds to host sex parties. They're pushing back about that. Action News race and culture reporter Tronda Thomas here now with more on the allegation and the fallout. And the center says this is an outright attack.
Yes, on them and on other groups that serve the LGBTQ plus community. They say rumors from the far right have cost the center $1 million in federal funds.
We're in the process of rebuilding our marvelous building.
But William Way Center's renovation project just hit a brick wall, with the organization losing $1 million in federal funding.
We're disappointed. We're outraged.
A federal package would have earmarked money for the organization, which serves the LGBTQ plus community. But a right-wing group called Libs of TikTok accused the William Way Center of hosting sex parties while receiving federal funds. The center's executive director says it doesn't allow such parties by any of the groups that rent out the space. One of those groups is Aviary, which hosts what are known as kink parties.
Almost anything could be a kink. A lot of people are into various forms of spanking. We just want to make sure that whatever you're interested in learning, you can learn how to do it safely.
Is there sex happening at these parties?
There is no sex at Aviary. It's not only against the venue's rules, but it's also against my insurance company's rules.
A point that would have been picked apart, according to Senator John Fetterman, who opted to remove William Way Center from the funding package, saying, quote, the choice was either to pull it or watch it get stripped out, attacked by Republicans, and ultimately killed. Senator Bob Casey withdrew his request for funding too, saying, quote, consenting adults have the right to do whatever they want in their free time, but these types of appropriations projects warrant the highest level of scrutiny on behalf of taxpayers.
We have spoken to the offices of both of our senators, and we realized they were put in a very difficult position by these lies and distortions.
Okay, first of all, let's get into this. And it is very indicative. Now, look, I'm a gay dude. Everybody knows it. I've been out for a very long time, even when I started getting into the right-leaning political stuff. And I've said a lot that this whatever the LGBT community is right now has gone super, super, super far left. And this stuff all goes back to the 1-2 punch of don't ask, don't tell repeal in the military, which was the right for gay and lesbian soldiers to serve openly, and marriage equality. When those things happened, it just seems like everything went crazy. And so now when you look at these LGBT resource centers across the country, which I do believe serve a purpose, I've always believed that these LGBT centers have served a purpose. They have moved with the very far left direction that the LGBT community has moved in. Now, if you want to tell me that these centers are doing services for homeless LGBT youth, fine. If they're doing after-school resource programs for young LGBT youth, fine. If you're doing career building and resource management and like resume and all of that stuff, great, fine. But the problem with these centers, and they're all like this, by the way, is that they're staffed by these very far left people who, again, if you listen to the previous segment, who are these liberals, and maybe some of these are well-meaning libs, they do not have the guts to stand up to the far left fringe. And so the far left fringe takes over and they say, well, we need to host this group and we need to host that group, blah, blah, blah. And so you have this group that is basically telling you that, and even if they said, well, they're not full-on sex parties, they're kink parties, and this person has said in this clip that they do spanking and they do all these different things. So now, these LGBT resource centers have so lost the plot that not only are they presenting space to people that are having quote-unquote kink parties at an LGBT resource center, which, by the way, are heavily populated by young people. Heavily populated by, we'll say, the 12 to 20-year-old people, okay? Young kids, gays and lesbians, like whatever, middle school, high school, whatever. Very highly populated by that crowd. And so you're going to tell me that my taxpayer dollars need to go to funding you to host a group that has spanking in a room? No. And that is not a distortion from the far right. That is not a distortion from libs of TikTok or those evil mean Republicans. That is the truth. So these people that are these people that are running these resource centers need to get it together. You need to take it from somebody that is in some capacity on your side. You need to get it together. You need to rein it back in, because people are not going to want to pay taxpayer dollars for you to have a group come in and teach kink to gay and lesbian teenagers. Pass. No. I'm a gay dude. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And it is just indicative of just how far gone you guys all are, to where you would defend this and then make it seem as if it's these evil Republicans that are coming for you. All right? So that's first of all. And it's very interesting that both of these Philadelphia, I believe that was Fetterman, said something on the books about why, they're pulling those tax dollars. And I believe that it was both Fetterman and Democratic Senator Bob Casey said why they're pulling these tax dollars. And so they're going to say, well, fundamentally, the part of that bill is going to get attacked by, those evil Republicans, and they would have pulled funding anyway. So we're just going to pull it right now. And if you are, and of course, they said, well, the executive director is saying that basically they're getting more private funding right now. And honestly, this is a way for these centers to send out their stupid email fundraising blast to make it seem like they're under attack by the far right. You're not under attack by the far right. You're under attack by people who don't want their taxpayer dollars going to teach 14-year-olds kink. All right? Seriously. And so this needs to be a sign. And I had to tell you, these, like the libs of TikToks and the right, the conservative influence of the world or whatever, like they're all over this stuff, as they should be. I do not disagree with them being in journalism and them actually delving into what exactly is being funded here. I'm not against that at all right? Because this is a reckoning that has had that should be happening and has had to happen with these LGBT resource centers for a really long time. I'm a gay man. Everybody knows it. I've always advocated for gay and lesbian teens. I don't like the trans stuff. Anything under 18, I'm not here for it. But I'll always advocate for the right of gay and lesbian. There need to be spaces for gay and lesbian teens. All right? To go be around each other, to go learn things, to go, I don't know, get help career-wise, help with, I used to work for an organization, or I used to volunteer for an organization called the Forney Center in New York City, which is one of the only organizations that I personally would give money to. Because they're one of the only organizations that actually do what they say they're going to do with the money, as opposed to, funding people's private jets over to go do, basically Democrat super PAC work. Their money goes where it's supposed to go. And I remember I used to volunteer for them and I would, like, teach the kids. Like, I was a math tutor for the teenage kids at school. Sometimes I had to tutor myself on some of that math before I was teaching the kids. But I believe in that stuff. Like, I really do believe that these spaces need to exist. But the existence of somebody that's sort of like holding kink parties, like, it sexualizes these spaces in a way that does not need to be sexualized in spaces that cater towards younger people. So yeah, their money got their money got pulled, and it should have gotten pulled. Because there's no way that my taxpayer dollars, if I was a Pennsylvania resident, there's no way that my taxpayer dollars need to be going towards far left organizations that are like teaching kink in an LGBT resource center. Unacceptable and unbelievable. All right, Problematics, thank you so much again for joining. Please watch, subscribe, and share at youtube.com/@can't-cancel-robsmith. Helps the algorithm, helps me out, helps me to get the problematic message to a larger base. And if you're listening, or if you want to listen to some of the audio-only episodes, please go to Apple Podcasts, iHeart Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Problematics, I will see you next time.